After 15 years of grinding, building my tech company from a garage startup to a multi-million-dollar enterprise, I finally rewarded myself. First came the house, a beautiful colonial in Oakwood Estates, one of the most prestigious neighborhoods in the city. Then came my dream car, a Lamborghini Aventador, midnight black with custom red interior. The day the delivery truck dropped off my Lambo was one of the proudest moments of my life. I stood in the driveway, keys in hand, admiring how the sunlight danced across the sleek carbon fiber body. Every curve, every angle represented years of sacrifice and determination. I had earned this, every penny, every sleepless night, every missed vacation and holiday. The rumble of the V12 engine echoed through the quiet neighborhood as I backed it into the garage. I noticed curtains twitching in nearby windows. Faces appeared and disappeared. In a community of luxury sedans and high-end SUVs, my Lamborghini was definitely making a statement. I did not think much of it until the next morning. I was washing my new pride and joy when a woman approached my driveway. Platinum blonde hair styled into a perfect bob. Oversized designer sunglasses perched on her nose. A tiny white Pomeranian pulling at its rhinestone-studded leash. "Good morning," she called out with practiced cheerfulness. "I am Patricia Winters. I live in the blue Tudor at the end of the cul-de-sac. Welcome to Oakwood Estates." I introduced myself politely, turning off the hose to shake her outstretched hand. "That is quite a vehicle," she said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "I suppose we will all have to get used to the sound it makes. I presume you are visiting someone in the neighborhood." "Actually, I just moved in," I replied, gesturing toward my house. "This is my new home." Something flickered across her face, disbelief perhaps, or disapproval. "Oh, how wonderful," she said, tilting her head. "And what is it that you do that allows you to afford such extravagant toys?" The question was intrusive, but I answered anyway, explaining my technology business and years of hard work. She nodded, but I could tell she was not truly listening. "Well, I should mention that Oakwood has certain standards," Patricia continued, her voice taking on an official tone. "I am the president of our homeowners association. We pride ourselves on maintaining a certain ambience here. Sports cars like these tend to disrupt the peace. The noise, the attention they draw, it is not really what we encourage." "I understand, but I assure you I am a respectful driver," I said, maintaining my composure. Patricia's dog yapped aggressively, straining at its leash. "Quiet, Bentley," she scolded before turning back to me. "I am sure you are. It is just that we have never had such a flashy vehicle in our community before. People might get the wrong idea about what kind of neighborhood this is becoming." I nodded politely but said nothing. There was no rule against owning a luxury sports car, and she knew it. This was about something else entirely. "Well, I should get going. We have an HOA meeting this Thursday. You should attend. Get to know everyone," she said, the command thinly veiled as an invitation. As she walked away, I could not shake the feeling that I had just been assessed, and somehow found wanting. That evening, I was unpacking boxes on my front porch when I overheard voices from the sidewalk. Patricia was walking with another woman, both of them glancing repeatedly toward my house. "I just find it suspicious," Patricia was saying, her voice carrying in the quiet evening air. "Nobody just shows up with that kind of car. He is either drowning in debt or involved in something illegal." "You think," the other woman whispered. "Trust me, I know the type. Probably some kind of dealer, or worse. We need to watch him closely." I stepped back into the shadows of my porch, my blood running cold. I had faced skepticism before as a young entrepreneur, but this was different. This woman did not just dislike my car, she had decided I did not belong here. And from the authority in her voice, it was clear she held significant influence in the community. As I closed my front door, I wondered briefly if I had made a mistake moving here. But I quickly dismissed the thought. I had worked too hard to let someone like Patricia intimidate me out of my dream home. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of her campaign against me. 3 days after our first encounter, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find Patricia standing there, smiling brightly, a plate of cookies in her hands. Her Pomeranian was nowhere to be seen, and her demeanor had completely transformed from our last interaction. "Good afternoon. I thought I would bring these over as a proper welcome to the neighborhood," she said, extending the plate toward me. "Homemade chocolate chip, my special recipe." I thanked her and invited her in, somewhat surprised by this sudden display of friendliness. She stepped inside, her eyes scanning every detail of my living room. "You have done wonderful things with the place already. The Hendersons who lived here before had such outdated taste," she remarked, setting the cookies on my coffee table. "And I must say I have been thinking about your car." "Oh," I responded, instantly wary. "Yes, it really is magnificent. I was perhaps a bit harsh the other day. My son actually saw it from his bedroom window and has not stopped talking about it. He is 17, just got his license. Absolutely obsessed with exotic cars." She settled herself onto my sofa without invitation, smoothing her skirt over her knees. "He has posters of Lamborghinis all over his walls, dreams of driving one someday, which got me thinking." She paused, leaning forward conspiratorially. "I would like to buy your car." I blinked in surprise. "I am sorry, but it is not for sale. I just got it." Patricia laughed, waving her hand dismissively. "Everything has a price, and I know these cars depreciate the moment they leave the showroom. I would be doing you a favor, really." "I appreciate the interest, but—" "I will give you $1 for it," she interrupted, her face completely serious. I stared at her, certain I had misheard. "Excuse me." $1, she repeated, reaching into her purse and pulling out a crisp bill. "It would be such a wonderful gesture, a way to really integrate yourself into our community." The absurdity of the moment left me speechless. Was this some kind of joke? My son would be over the moon, and everyone in Oakwood would see what a generous neighbor you are. That kind of goodwill is priceless, especially for someone new like yourself. Her tone suggested she was offering me an incredible opportunity. "Patricia, I am sorry, but that car cost me over $300,000. I cannot just give it away." Her smile faltered. "But we are neighbors. Neighbors help each other. Do you know how many people I could introduce you to? The connections I could provide." "I understand, but the answer is no." Her expression hardened instantly. The warmth in her eyes vanished, replaced by something cold and calculating. "I see. Well, I thought you would be different. This community values generosity and cooperation. We look out for each other here." She stood up abruptly. "You should remember that selfishness has consequences in Oakwood Estates." "Are you threatening me?" I asked, incredulous. "Threatening? Goodness no, just offering some friendly advice." She moved toward the door. "Keep the cookies, though I doubt they will sweeten your attitude." She left without another word, the door closing with a decisive click behind her. I stood in my living room, the absurdity of what had just transpired slowly sinking in. This woman had genuinely expected me to hand over a supercar worth hundreds of thousands of dollars for $1. Later that afternoon, I returned from a grocery run to find an official-looking envelope taped to my front door. Inside was a citation from the Oakwood Estates Homeowners Association regarding non-compliant vehicular aesthetics and disruption of neighborhood harmony. There was also a fine for $500. The paper trembled in my hands. At the bottom, in flowing signature, was Patricia Winter's name, followed by HOA President. The cookies she had brought still sat untouched on my coffee table. I tossed the citation down beside them, my mind racing. This was never about her son's dreams or neighborhood integration. This was about control. Patricia had made her first move in what I was beginning to realize would be a calculated war against me. And all because I refused to sell my car for $1. The next morning, I called the HOA office number listed on the citation. After being transferred 3 times, I finally reached someone who could discuss my case. "Yes, Mr. Winters brought this violation to our attention personally," the administrative assistant explained. "Apparently, your vehicle does not comply with Section 12, Paragraph 8 of our community guidelines." "Can you tell me exactly what Section 12, Paragraph 8 says?" I asked. "I am afraid I do not have that information readily available. You will need to submit a formal request to review the HOA bylaws. It takes approximately 2 weeks to process. I took a deep breath. But I have been fined based on these bylaws. Should not I be able to see them immediately? That is not how our process works, sir. You can either pay the fine or file a formal dispute which will be reviewed at the next quarterly meeting. That would be 3 months from now. It was bureaucracy designed to frustrate and discourage. I filed the dispute anyway and requested a copy of the complete HOA guidelines. Then I headed to work, trying to put the absurdity behind me. When I returned that evening, I noticed something peculiar. Patricia was standing across the street, partially hidden behind a large oak tree, her phone raised in my direction. She was photographing my house and my car. Over the next week, the citations multiplied. A noise complaint for starting my car too early at 8 a.m. An improper parking violation because my car was allegedly half an inch too close to the curb. A landscaping citation claiming my perfectly manicured lawn was 0.25 inches above regulation height. Each morning, a new envelope waited on my porch. Each evening, Patricia or her husband would be watching from somewhere nearby, documenting my movements with meticulous attention. I attempted to speak with other neighbors, hopping to find allies. Most avoided eye contact, hurrying into their homes when they saw me approaching. One man, Dave from 2 doors down, who had initially seemed friendly, now crossed the street when he saw me coming. "Sorry," he muttered one day when I managed to intercept him. "Nothing personal, but Patricia runs the social committee too. Last guy who crossed her found himself uninvited from everything for a year. My kids need the connections for college. You understand?" I did understand. Patricia had built a small kingdom here, ruling through fear and social exclusion. Fighting her meant fighting alone. After receiving my 12th citation in 10 days, I decided to protect myself. I installed high-definition security cameras covering every angle of my property. If Patricia wanted to document my every move, I would return the favor. The cameras were barely in place for 24 hours before they captured their first significant footage. It was just after midnight when the motion sensors activated, sending an alert to my phone. I watched in real time as Patricia crept along the side of my house, flashlight in hand, moving toward my garage. She was trespassing on my property in the middle of the night. I threw on a robe and rushed outside, switching on the exterior lights as I opened the door. "Patricia, what are you doing on my property at midnight?" I called out. She startled, nearly dropping her flashlight. For a split second, genuine fear crossed her face before she regained her composure. "Oh, I thought I saw something suspicious near your garage. A person lurking. I was just checking for your safety," she said, straightening her jacket. "At midnight, with no phone to call the police, just a camera to photograph my license plates." I gestured toward the phone in her other hand. "How dare you accuse me? I am the head of the neighborhood watch committee. I am doing my civic duty." Her indignation seemed practiced, rehearsed. "You are trespassing. It is recorded on my security system. If I see you on my property again without invitation, I will call the police." Her eyes narrowed. "You know, for someone with so many HOA violations, you are not in a position to make threats." "It is not a threat. It is the law. Now please leave." She stalked away, shoulders rigid with anger. As I watched her retreat, I knew this confrontation had just escalated everything. Patricia had been exposed, caught in the act, and people like her did not handle exposure well. What I did not realize yet was how dangerous a cornered Karen could truly be. Monday morning arrived with a clear sky and bright sunshine. I had an important client meeting downtown and needed to leave earlier than usual. I backed my Lamborghini out of the garage, checking my watch as I shifted into drive. That is when I saw her in my rearview mirror. Patricia was standing directly behind my car, arms crossed, blocking my exit. I rolled down my window. "Patricia, I need to leave for work. Please move aside." "We need to discuss these cameras you have installed," she called back, not budging. "They are an invasion of privacy. They record parts of the public sidewalk." "Which is legal and within my rights. Now please move, I am running late. Not until we resolve this. The HOA board is very concerned. These cameras could be recording children walking to school. I sighed heavily. The cameras are pointed at my property to prevent trespassing, like what you were doing the other night. Now please move or I will have to call someone. Are you threatening me? She asked, her voice rising dramatically. I am asking you to stop blocking my car, that is all. I heard that as a threat, she shouted, suddenly pulling out her phone. You said you would run me over. What? I never said anything like that. But Patricia was already dialing, her hands shaking with what appeared to be fear. But her eyes were cold and calculating. 911, yes, I need help immediately. My neighbor just threatened me with his vehicle. He said he would run me over if I did not move. I am afraid for my life. Her voice trembled with manufactured terror. Yes, I am at 847 Oakwood Drive. Please hurry, he seems unstable and I think he might have a weapon. He keeps reaching toward his glove compartment. I sat frozen in disbelief. She was lying to the police, making up threats I never made, implying I was armed. Patricia, stop this right now. Tell them the truth, I demanded, but she backed away, still on the phone, describing my aggressive behavior and history of confrontations to the dispatcher. Within minutes, sirens wailed in the distance. Neighbors emerged from their homes, curious about the commotion. Patricia stood at a safe distance, playing the role of the terrified victim perfectly. 3 police cruisers screeched to a halt in front of my house, officers emerging with weapons drawn. Exit the vehicle with your hands visible, one officer shouted. Heart-pounding, I complied. Officers, there has been a misunderstanding. Hands where we can see them. Step away from the vehicle and get on your knees. The humiliation was complete. In front of my entire neighborhood, I was being treated like a dangerous criminal. I could see phones recording the scene from several houses. Patricia stood behind the police, a satisfied expression briefly crossing her face before she resumed her frightened act. I was handcuffed and questioned on my own driveway. The officers searched my car. Found nothing, of course. I explained the situation calmly, mentioned the security footage that would show Patricia blocking my car, the absence of any threats. After 20 excruciating minutes, the officers finally seemed to understand what had happened. They uncuffed me, apologizing for the response, but explaining they had to take threats involving vehicles and weapons seriously. As they spoke with Patricia, I noticed one of my neighbors, a young woman named Sarah, standing at the edge of my property. Unlike the others who were just gawking, she looked concerned and thoughtful. Her phone was still raised, recording everything. This is not right, she muttered as I walked past her. She did the same thing to the Rodriguezes last year, made them move out eventually. Patricia was gesturing wildly to the officers, insisting on her version of events. But they were increasingly skeptical, especially after I offered to show them my security footage. As the police finally left, Patricia stood alone on the sidewalk. The crowd of neighbors had dispersed. Her power play had not gone exactly as planned. This is not over, she hissed as I walked back toward my house. People like you do not belong here. One way or another, you will learn that. I turned to face her. You just filed a false police report, Patricia. That is a criminal offense. For the first time since I had met her, uncertainty flickered in her eyes, but it was quickly replaced by righteous indignation. No one will believe you over me. No one. But as she walked away, I noticed Sarah still standing nearby, her phone still recording. Maybe Patricia was wrong. Maybe someone would believe me after all. That evening, my phone would not stop buzzing with notifications. Sarah's video of the incident had gone viral. Local Facebook groups, Nextdoor, even Twitter, the footage was everywhere. Karen calls cops on Lamborghini owner was trending in our city. I sat in my living room, watching as thousands of comments poured in. People were outraged on my behalf. The video clearly showed Patricia blocking my car, her animated call to 911, and the excessive police response. Most damning of all was the moment after the police left, when she threatened me, not realizing she was still being recorded. While part of me appreciated the support, Another part dreaded the escalation. Patricia would not take this public humiliation lightly. I needed professional help. The next morning, I contacted a lawyer specializing in HOA disputes. "This is one of the more extreme cases I have seen," Janet Morris said after reviewing my documentation and the viral video. "But not entirely uncommon. HOAs can become personal fiefdoms for people with control issues." "What can I do?" I asked. "Several things. First, we file a police report for the false 911 call. Second, we request all HOA documents, meeting minutes, financial records, voting histories. Third, we file for an injunction against any further HOA actions against you until this is resolved." I nodded, relieved to have a plan. "And the citations, the fines?" "We dispute everything. Based on what you have told me, I suspect Patricia has been operating outside proper procedures for years." As Janet began preparing our legal response, something unexpected happened. I received an email from an address I did not recognize. "My name is Robert Chen. I am the newly elected treasurer of the Oakwood HOA. I saw what happened to you. We need to talk, but not over email. Can we meet somewhere private? What Patricia did to you, she has done to others. Some of us have been trying to stop her for years." I was cautious but intrigued. We arranged to meet at a coffee shop downtown, away from prying eyes. Robert turned out to be a soft-spoken man in his 50s. He slid a USB drive across the table. 3 years of HOA records. The real ones, not the sanitized versions Patricia distributes. Meeting minutes where homeowner complaints mysteriously disappear. Financial records showing selective enforcement of rules. A list of people who have been driven out of the neighborhood after crossing her. "Why are you doing this?" I asked. "Because my family was almost one of them. My daughter painted her bedroom a shade of blue Patricia deemed non-compliant. We received daily fines until we repainted. When I complained, my property taxes were mysteriously reassessed at a higher value. Patricia's husband works at the county assessor's office." I reviewed the documents that night. The pattern was clear. Patricia had been manipulating the HOA for years, using it to target anyone who challenged her authority or refused her demands. Board members who opposed her found themselves facing investigations for bylaw violations or social ostracism. The next day, a local news van parked outside my house. The reporter had seen the viral video and wanted my side of the story. I hesitated, then agreed to an interview. "Mr. Winters claims you threatened her with your vehicle," the reporter said. "I have security footage showing exactly what happened," I replied, "and I am not the first person she has targeted." The story aired that evening. By the next morning, 3 more former Oakwood residents had come forward with their own stories of harassment. Patricia responded by doubling down. New citations appeared daily. My mailbox was stuffed with HOA violation notices, but now they felt different, desperate rather than intimidating. With Janet's help, I filed my legal counterstrike, an injunction against the HOA, a formal complaint with the police for the false report, and a cease and desist letter regarding Patricia's harassment. The most surprising support came from within Oakwood itself. Several current board members, emboldened by Robert's example, began reaching out. They shared their own stories of manipulation and intimidation. They were tired of living under Patricia's reign of terror. "There is an emergency HOA meeting scheduled for Friday," Robert told me over the phone. "Patricia does not know it yet, but it is going to be about her." For the first time since moving to Oakwood Estates, I felt something beyond frustration and anger. I felt hope. Patricia had spent years building her power through fear and isolation, ensuring her victims never connected with each other. But now, thanks to one viral video, her carefully constructed kingdom was beginning to crumble. Friday evening arrived with a tension that hung in the air like an approaching storm. The community center parking lot was filled beyond capacity. Cars lined both sides of the street for blocks. Inside, the usual neat rows of chairs had been expanded to accommodate an unprecedented turnout. Board members sat at a long table on a raised platform, looking nervous. A local news crew had set up in the back, their camera trained on the empty podium. Patricia arrived exactly on time, dressed impeccably as always. Her confident stride faltered momentarily when she saw the crowd, but she quickly recovered, nodding graciously to her supporters. Those supporters, I noticed, were far fewer than she might have expected. Robert Chen opened the meeting with a shocking announcement. Tonight's agenda has been modified. We will be addressing numerous complaints regarding HOA leadership and allegations of abuse of power. He looked directly at Patricia. As per our bylaws, when allegations concern the president, the vice president must chair the proceedings. Patricia's face reddened. This is highly irregular. I was not informed. With respect, Madam President, the board voted on this change yesterday. The vote was 6-1. You were the one. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Patricia glanced around, seeking allies among the other board members. She found none. For the next hour, residents came forward one by one. A retired couple described being fined for having grandchildren visit too frequently. A single mother recounted how Patricia had reported her to child services for letting her kids play unsupervised in their own fenced backyard. A businessman detailed how his home-based consultancy was targeted with noise complaints during normal business hours. With each testimony, Patricia's expression hardened. She scribbled furious notes, occasionally attempting to interrupt, only to be reminded by the vice president that she would have her turn to respond. When it was my turn to speak, I approached the podium calmly. I had rehearsed what I would say, determined to remain factual and unemotional. My name is Jason Mitchell. I moved to Oakwood Estates 3 months ago. Since then, I have received 43 HOA citations, all signed by Patricia Winters. I have security footage showing Ms. Winters trespassing on my property late at night. And most seriously, I have video evidence of Ms. Winters making a false report to emergency services, claiming I threatened her with my vehicle and possessed a weapon, neither of which was true. I presented the evidence methodically. The citations, the security footage, the viral video of the 911 call, police reports, witness statements, and finally the documentation Robert had provided showing years of similar behavior. This is not about a car or a personal disagreement, I concluded. This is about the systematic abuse of power and the creation of a hostile living environment through intimidation and harassment. When I returned to my seat, Patricia rose shakily to her feet. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. These accusations are ridiculous, she began, her voice tight. Everything I have done has been for the good of this community, to maintain our standards, our property values, our way of life. Her voice rose as she continued, growing increasingly defensive and erratic. That car, that gaudy, ostentatious monstrosity, it does not belong here. None of you understand what I have sacrificed to keep this neighborhood special, to keep the riffraff out. My methods may be direct, but they are necessary. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. Patricia seemed to realize she had said too much. What I mean is, these allegations are false. Mr. Mitchell refused a perfectly reasonable request regarding his vehicle. Then he installed invasive surveillance equipment. He is trying to change the character of our community. The vice president cleared his throat. Thank you, Ms. Winters. We will now vote on the motion before the board, a vote of no confidence in the current HOA president and her immediate removal from all positions of authority within the association. Patricia's face drained of color. You cannot do this. I founded this HOA. I wrote the bylaws. Yes, and according to those bylaws, a 2/3 majority vote can remove any officer found to have abused their position. Robert's voice was gentle but firm. The vote will now proceed. The result was not even close, 47-12. Patricia Winters was removed from all HOA positions effective immediately. As the verdict was announced, the room erupted in applause. People stood, cheering and embracing one another. Years of fear and intimidation had finally ended. Patricia sat motionless, staring straight ahead as if unable to comprehend what had just happened. Then, without a word, she gathered her belongings and walked toward the exit. The crowd parted silently to let her pass. At the door, she paused and looked back at the community she had ruled for so long. For a brief moment, our eyes met. There was no remorse there, only cold fury and the promise of retribution. But as she stepped out into the night, alone, I knew her power was gone, and Oakwood Estates could finally begin to heal. 2 weeks after Patricia's removal, the changes in Oakwood Estates were remarkable. The new HOA board, led by Robert Chen as interim president, immediately implemented reforms to prevent future abuses of power. All my citations were formally rescinded, and I received an official apology on HOA letterhead. Patricia had retreated into her Tudor home at the end of the cul-de-sac. Blinds permanently drawn, she emerged only for necessities. Her husband, suddenly under investigation at the county assessor's office for improper use of his position, had become equally scarce. But the neighborhood itself had blossomed. People who had avoided each other for years now chatted freely on sidewalks and driveways. Children played outdoors without their parents anxiously checking for HOA spies. Gardens became more colorful, more personal, less rigidly uniform. To celebrate this new beginning, I decided to host a block party. I sent invitations to every house in the development, including Patricia's. She did not respond, but nearly everyone else did. On a perfect Saturday afternoon, my driveway and front lawn transformed into community central. Grills sizzled with burgers and hot dogs. A local band played from a small stage I had set up. Children bounced in a rented inflatable castle. Midway through the festivities, Robert tapped a microphone, asking for everyone's attention. He said a few words about new beginnings and community spirit, then introduced me. I had not planned to speak, but looking out at all these faces, neighbors who had gone from strangers to allies, I felt compelled to say something. When I moved to Oakwood Estates, I was looking for a home, not a battle, I began. I learned quickly that sometimes standing up for yourself means standing up for others too. What happened here was not just about me or my car. It was about remembering that communities thrive when people support each other, not control each other. Applause rippled through the crowd. Today marks a new chapter for all of us. Let this be a neighborhood where we celebrate our differences rather than policing them, where we talk to each other instead of filing complaints against each other, where we remember that behind every front door is a person with their own dreams and struggles. As I finished speaking, I noticed movement behind a curtain in Patricia's house across the street. A pale face watching the celebration, the community that had slipped from her grasp. After the speeches, several children approached me shyly. "Can we see your car?" one boy asked. "My dad says it is the coolest thing ever." I smiled and led them to the garage, opening it to reveal my Lamborghini. "Whoa," they gasped in unison. "Who wants to sit inside?" I offered. Their faces lit up with excitement as they took turns sitting in the driver's seat, making engine noises and pretending to steer. Later, as the party wound down, I took my Lamborghini for a slow cruise around the neighborhood. Children waved. Adults raised glasses in salute. I drove past Patricia's house, where the curtains quickly closed. I smiled to myself, the engine purring beneath me. This car represented 15 years of hard work and determination. It was mine, my dream, my reward, my rules. And not even the most determined Karen in the world could take that away from me.